Hi everyone, my name is Olivia and I'm the National Content Coordinator for the Manchester Unity Members Forum. Welcome to the second video in our series on positive mindset and how we can increase our overall happiness and mindset. Today we will be talking about awareness and how that connects to our previous video on meditation and how it also can reduce stress. I'm lucky to be joined again by Sofian from Shaking Minds, who will be sharing his knowledge on this subject. Sofian, would you like to introduce yourself to people who might be joining us for the first time?
Absolutely. So welcome everyone. I hope you guys are doing great. So my name is Sofian, like Olivia said. I am the founder of Shaking Minds. So Shaking Minds is just the result of the life coaching that I've been doing over the last 10 years all around the world. And so basically I just decided to create something that would help people to live a happier life, or if you prefer, like giving them tips to getting out as a winner of every single challenging situation and making a positive impact on the life of people. So that's what I'm aiming to do as a coach, and that's what I'm aiming to do with all this video with you guys.
Awesome, thank you. So my first question is, what is awareness? Is there what is, from your coach's point of view, what's your definition of it, and how would you describe what awareness is? And how also does it link to meditation, which is what we talked about in our last video?
Great. So basically, last week we talked about meditation, and we talked about the fact that when we do meditation, we able to press pause and starting to be aware of what's happening in the moment. So when we do meditation, we are starting to raise awareness of what's happening in the moment, and more specifically about how we feel. Now, the concept of awareness in general is to be able to acknowledging what's happening within you. So for example, if you go to the movies and you watch like the last James Bond movie, for example, you are able to say on the screen, oh, he's feeling that type of emotion, she's having that type of emotion, this is how it is. You can feel it. They built it around it with music, the way that they're going to film, the way that they're going to speak, and all that type of stuff. Everything will be designed in a way that you can understand what is the emotion and you can feel them, right? Awareness would be exactly the same, but on an internal spectrum. That means it's like yourself dissociating from what's happening in your life and watching the movie of your life and saying, oh, he's experiencing anger, she's experiencing this and this and this. And you're not saying I'm experiencing. You will say, if I'm in my own head, oh, he's experiencing anger right now, he's experiencing being upset, or that type of thing. So awareness is acknowledging the emotions that are present inside of you. And the easiest way to do that is by dissociating yourself from this emotion on the moment. That's why meditation becomes important, because meditation will stop you in the flow of the emotion, press pause, and start to reflect on yourself. Awareness is here. Awareness is the key, because awareness, as we're going to discuss in the upcoming few minutes in the video, awareness will lead you to so much more things. Once you're able to understand what is the emotion that is there, then you can start working on that right there. That's what awareness is.
Awesome. Can you have awareness without doing meditation, or is meditation the first stepping stone to becoming more aware?
I would say meditation is just a way to make the awareness easier. You can become aware without meditation. That's completely fine. Like, many people can be aware without meditation. And basically we call that emotional intelligence. So there is intellectual intelligence and there is emotional intelligence. And so emotional intelligence is the art of being aware itself, and it doesn't specially require meditation. Now, when you combine them together, it just simply makes it easier. For people, it's necessary to have meditation to be more aware.
Okay. And what do we need to be aware of? Is there specific things in our life that we could be aware of, or is it kind of like an overall thing that we can just be sort of generally aware of what we're doing on our day-to-day life, or is it more specific?
Well, so there are certain things that we are aware of. For example, if I were to ask you, what did you eat today? You would probably be able to tell me what you ate, because even if this is a system automatic and you don't think about it, at the end of the day, you're still aware of what you're eating. But if I were to ask you specifically, how did you feel when you ate your main today? From an emotional perspective, this will be a lot more trickier. Although you might be able to, if there was something, if there was an event, an important event, you might be able to remember the emotion linked to that. But if I was putting you in a situation to try to remember an emotion while you're eating an apple, you wouldn't be aware of it, right? So we have like certain level of awareness depending on what it is. Why do we want to bring awareness? Basically, what is very important when you develop awareness is to be able to develop awareness around your motivators and your pitfalls. So your motivators is being aware of whatever puts you on fire, whatever brings you passion, whatever brings you energy. Once you become aware, let's say I'm taking my case, which is making a positive impact for people. This, I'm aware that this is something that motivates me. Because it motivates me, if I want to stay happy, if I want to stay in great shape, if I want to stay motivated about what I'm doing, I'm going to put myself on purpose in a situation where I'm impacting people's life. Because I'm doing this and I'm in that situation at the moment that we're talking right now, then I'm happy. Remember the purpose of Shaking Minds, making people living a happier life. So if you want to be happy, you need to be aware of what makes you happy. If you don't know what it is, then it's never going to work. Then the second thing, like I was saying, is the thing that, what we call the triggers, or the thing that annoys you on the other hand. So the motivators are the plus, the triggers are the minus. You need to know what annoys you. You need to know what will generate a negative emotion inside you. Once you're aware of it, you are actually, you actually have the opportunity to prepare yourself psychologically to enter a difficult situation. I'm not saying to avoid, I'm saying to prepare yourself. In some situation, maybe you're going to be able to avoid. If that's appropriate, why not? But in some situation, because you prepare yourself psychologically and you know, you're like, oh, I'm aware that when I put myself in a situation like this, I don't feel comfortable, then you can start to prepare yourself and tell yourself, what can I do to avoid being in that situation? So to give you an example, I had that issue when I used to walk into a group of people that I don't know, I felt completely switched off. I felt that I wasn't comfortable because I don't feel comfortable to talk to people that I don't know. And because it's a social event, you kind of feel forced to do that because you don't want to be the awkward one in the room or something like this. So if I take an example that I had a few years ago, when I used to go to social event, I used to feel very uncomfortable because you go to a social event, you want to talk to people, but you don't know them. But on the other hand, you don't want to be that weird guy in the back of the room that don't speak to anyone. So I knew that I was putting myself in a difficult situation where I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. But because I was aware of it, I was developing strategy in my head. What could I do when I walk into the room to feel a bit more comfortable? And basically I developed a strategy, which was when you walk into the room, scan the room and try to find the person that looks like the most approachable. And once you get, that's your focus, you focus on this. And once you focus on this, you approach that person and you try to get the conversation going with them. So instead of trying to convince a full room of 50 people, because that's the thought that I had, I was just scanning the room, focusing on my goal, which was to talk to that person. And basically it switched completely my presence in the room, and it completely switched as well the stress that I had walking into the room. So by being aware that I was entering potentially a stressful situation, I developed strategy and I was able to reduce my stress. So knowing what motivates you and knowing what triggers you will help you to develop strategy to put you either in the situation or to develop a strategy to reduce the stress of the situation.
So rather than feeling overwhelmed when you walk into a room of 100 people or however many people there are, instead of focusing on the enormity of that situation, you focus on who can I approach that looks most approachable, rather than being like, oh, I've got to try and talk to 100 people. No, actually, I can just start with one person and then perhaps build myself up.
Absolutely. It's really about this. And so basically, that amount of people will look like a mountain, but if you think about one person, then it becomes a lot easier. So it's just an example out of 1,000 others that I could give you, but it's really about like that situation. You know what triggers you, you're aware of it. So now, what are you going to do about it?
Okay. Similar situation, how would you approach that perhaps if you had to speak in front of all those people? I know a lot of people, including myself, get a bit nervous or uncomfortable standing up in front of even 20 people to deliver a speech or whatever they need to do. How would you approach that? So
the great thing about what you just said right now is you actually already have awareness of what is happening when you talk in front of a group of people, which, by the way, is a very common thing. The being nervous and anxious in public speaking, like the fear of public speaking, is a huge thing. So the fact that you acknowledge this is already like it's the biggest step. You have the awareness. Now, what strategy can you develop in order to counteract against this? Well, it's going to be a case by case. But if I take the specific case that you just gave me right now, which is public speaking, what are the strategies that you can develop against that? Well, the public speaking, the best way to counteract it is, first of all, to talk about something that you completely master. So whatever you're going to be, I always recommend to people, if you want to do public speaking, talk about something that you know. Talk about something that you are confident enough that even if people are asking you questions, you're not going to feel trapped into it. Because most of the time, with public speaking, there is stress that comes, there is anxiety and all of that. And if you talk about a subject that you don't 100% know, you're not going to feel comfortable. It's not going to help. So you need to be able to make sure that you know what you're talking about. And basically, you're just going to talk from your heart. You're going to talk from something that you usually do, and you're going to share your passion. Then what I like to say to people is, when you do that, when you talk from your heart, don't focus on the room. Focus on the first row. Focus on 1 or 2 or 3 people on the front row of the room with who you're going to try to make that connection. Yes, it might feel awkward for the rest of the room. The rest of the room might think that you just focus on a couple of people like this or whatsoever. But the quality of your delivery will be highly improved because you actually feel that you have more like a one-on-one conversation and not 1-200 conversation. That makes a huge difference. The other simple strategy for public speaking as well, there is you just Google it. There is tons and tons of how to improve your public speaking and that type of things and all of that. So I tell people, when you know about something where you don't feel comfortable, train yourself on it. As simple as this. Train yourself. Find some courses about public speaking. Find some different things. Find some tips. Go and speak to someone that does public speaking and ask them the question, but be honest, be authentic with them and tell them, hey, you know what? I want to do public speaking, but every time I going on stage, I feel that I'm completely losing it. I'm driven by fear. And they're going to tell you, most of the time they're going to tell you this, they're like, I know, because that's how I was as well. So don't think that you are the only one in that case. Everyone has their own experience, but everyone has different strategies to go against it. So it's just best practice sharing after that.
Cool. So it's rather than, again, seeing it as a huge scary thing to be standing up in front of however many people, just take it step by step and focus on a couple of people in the front row. Or I really like what you said about talking about something that you're passionate about, because it's going to seem a lot easier if you're standing up there talking about something that you love, rather than standing there shaking, talking about a subject that you perhaps don't know.
Absolutely.
About.
And also, I've seen some people developing some very interesting strategy. I remember there was one person that was he wanted to become he wanted to make a difference for people on a certain subject, right? So when we discussed that together, he knew that at some point he would probably have to, the more people he could reach, the better it was. So he knew that if one day he would have the opportunity to speak in a stadium, that would be a fantastic opportunity for him, right? But when we came to the very first session where he had to speak in front of 20 people, he couldn't do it. And he was just like, the words weren't coming out or whatever. So I was like, what's happening? And he's like, I have stage fright and I'm afraid of public speaking. And I said, no problem. We had to deal with that on the spot because, like, you had to go on stage and deliver his thing. And I look at him and I say, okay, how many people are there in the room now? And he's like, oh, I think there's about 30 people. Physically, there were 18 people exactly. I remember that. And I ask him, I'm like, how many people does it feel like there is in the room? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, how many people do you feel there is in the room right now? And he told me thousands. And I say, brilliant. And I say, now remind me, what would happen if you were able to deliver your message to thousands of people at once? And he was like, it would be fantastic. And I said, well, there you go. You have your 1,000 people waiting for you outside right now. And you see, it was just the idea that putting him into the context, putting him into the right context. You are aware that you have that thing. That's great. Let's put a strategy. The strategy was to be like, I'm going to put you in the context that you're aiming for this goal. Your purpose is not to be a public speaker. Your purpose is to deliver a message to touch as many lives as possible. There you go. You have your opportunity. Funny enough, after the session, like, he delivered the session brilliantly. It was beautiful to see, really honest, really good. At the end of the session, he came up to me and he was like, yeah, it felt so good. It felt so great. And that was fantastic. And I loved it. And I was like, well, now there could be thousands of people in the room. It won't make any difference for you now because you always have that thing in mind. And he said, yeah, but there was only 20 people. And I say, in the room, yes. But now think about, with the quality of what you just said, you have impacted a lot more than just 20 lives tonight, because these 20 people will talk to another 20 people, and then to another 20, and then to another 20, and so on and so on and so on. So by just doing one presentation, he probably affected, I don't know, maybe 100, 200, 300 lives. So there is that magic behind it as well.
That's really cool. And what you said about finding your purpose and why you're speaking, if that's the example we're going with, that also kind of links back to what we were talking about in the last video about meditation. Is rather than just doing meditation because it's something that everyone else is doing, it's a cool trend or whatever, if you find your purpose, then it's going to become a lot easier and you're more likely to put more time and effort into it because it makes you happy and it's something that positively impacts your life.
Of course. And it's like, it's just like anyone else. Try to drag someone to the gym that don't see the benefit of the gym. You can't. Honestly, you can't, because you're going to drag their feet. They're going to be like, kicking and screaming like, no, yeah. I don't want to go. And I understand they don't want to go because they don't see the purpose of it. The purpose doesn't relate to them. And if it doesn't relate to them, they don't want to do it. As simple as this. So the purpose needs to relate to the person in order to do what we want to do out of it. But we need to be aware and acknowledge this.